Meg 2 Sabers requires a lot of work on engineering, drilling, smoothing, tapping, setting, imagining, cutting, stripping, twisting, dipping, tin it, pin it, wire it, fire it, lock it, blast it, swing it, bash it. Meg 2 Sabers.
Bam, we're live. Stand by. Got some stuff to show you guys tonight. Stream got messed up last night and got my internet fixed today. And, you know, last night I was kind of throwing a little bit of a temper tantrum here at the house. And then, you know, reality strikes in. About 30 miles to my south, right on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina last night, you know, an F2 or F3 tornado took out some houses, and some people were killed, and a bunch of people were injured, and a bunch of people woke up this morning without a home. And, you know, I was griping last night about internet not working, and, you know, there are bigger problems in the world. So it kind of put things in perspective, number one. Number two, for those of y'all that don't know, and I know we don't have a lot of viewers yet, but this will be in posterity. I got engaged to be married to Jen Jen. So that happened on Valentine's Day. And now let's go to some Saber updates. So we've had some good news. But I had to do this live tonight because it has to do with building the blade for this Saber. So this is the Star Killer, and this was Britain Woolley or Saber Royale's Star Killer. Thin waist Star Killer. You can see the thin waist here. And I weathered this one, custom weathering. It's really rusty. Did that with faux rust. The chassis in this Saber, before I fire it up and bring it to life, let's go ahead and do this, because once I bring it to life, then all the gestures do a bunch of crazy stuff. It's a simple user replaceable 18650. There's the Profi. That's a 2.2 that's in the chassis, and you can see my wiring there. There's no wires visible. You know, I didn't put the kill switch in because it's a user replaceable battery, but you know, the standby mode in Profi kind of, I don't know, it's kind of overdone to do that anymore in my opinion. But let's go ahead and fire this thing up once I get it all buttoned up. This one is running Profi OS 5.7 with battle mode, and y'all know a lot of what it can do, but just want to show the Saber in action so you see it's working. Number one, when you activate it, once it's woken up, the crystal chamber does pulse. When off, it pulses. Hopefully y'all can see that. Let's activate it with a gesture ignition, battle mode, automatic lockup, which stops after you twist it. It's also got oop, which is pretty cool. And it has auto blasters too. So hang on a minute, I'm going to turn it off with a gesture. I'm going to ignite it. Now, to get to auto blast, every time you swing it, you get a blast. And you know, the config on this is pretty cool with battle mode. Next, I wanted to show you guys the Sith Saber. And hopefully, you know, now since I've got proper bandwidth, you guys can see some of my shattered weathering on this. So I did a pretty big cut here in the emitter. And from that cut, I have, you know, basically some shattered weathering that looks like, you know, lightning ran through the Saber. And then I weathered that lightning with aluminum black. And then I also weathered these recesses with aluminum black so they pop a little bit more. This Saber is equipped with Profi 1.5. It is a single button, SA2CC single button with battle mode. And the cool thing about SA2CC single button is just, it's incredible. you don't lose anything. So I'm going to wake it up, and it's going to ignite. There's your force lightning on single button. And then here's lockup, which is responsive. And then of course tip drag. It also does color change. You've got the volume menu, everything on a single button. And the cool part about the single button mode is you also have gesture ignitions. You have gesture ignitions. So all that's pretty cool. But this one has a an illuminated AV switch here, and you know, I've got the saber clip here. It's a pretty cool saber. Pretty cool little saber. This is from Vector in Finland. Pretty cool one-off hilt. And then next to last, I want to show you, this is another Vector hilt, and this one's going to have, I think, black leather wrap on it. I might do brown. I don't know. If there's anybody on here, maybe they could post for it. Monmouth Boba Fett is on. Hey, man. Great to see you. It's kind of unexpected for me to be live tonight, so I know we're not going to have a lot of viewers, but that's okay because some of this is going in posterity. This is another Vector hilt from Finland. This one's installed with Verso. Now, the other week when I premiered this saber, this is a brand new install by me. This one's going to be for sale. All three of these sabers are going to be for sale, both Vectors and the Star Killer. This one, I did Verso. This was my first Verso install, and when I first did it, all you had on Verso, and I'm going to wake it up.
This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
The only thing you had on Verso was extend, flash on clash, and retract.
I am a Jedi.
I've already kind of given a hint that there's a lot more to it now. Cal did an update on the Verso, and the Verso is awesome. So I'm going to ignite this thing, and there's our Vader type font, and of course you still got flash on clash, and you also have lockup now, and it's localized here. Hopefully that comes out on video. Blaster blocks, and they're random. Kyberphonic did all these fonts. Now the cool part about the blaster blocks on Verso is you get the block deflection and then you hear the blaster, which makes sense because the blaster bolts are traveling at the speed of light and sound is slower than light. So you get the deflection before you hear the blaster, which is pretty cool. I think it's more realistic. Kyberphonic and Cal did a great job on doing that. Next, along with all those effects, you also have color changing. So you can change the colors on the fly, and then once you get a color you like, you lock it in. And then you have effects scroll, where you got like a plain blade here, and then a light flicker, a heavy flicker, and then you actually have effects, which this is a flame blade there, which you're seeing, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go back to the light flicker, lock it in. And you can also scroll through the sound banks. Listen, you'll hear the hum change. Which I'm going back to the Vader one. In addition to all that, Cal also added accent swings on Verso. So it's a lot more organic. Almost as organic as Profi. I like the accent swings, the way that it's been done on Verso. Then, in addition to that, you have multiple sound banks available.
This is the weapon.
I think it's unlimited. But there you go.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And then the last font's Flame, and it's Kyberphonic's Fire. All these are by Kyberphonic. They're the factory fonts. You can hear the accent swings going. That's a cool font, and you got it going on the flame blade. So now you got Neopixel effects going on the Verso. In my opinion, this makes Verso a highly competitive board. It's good for beginners. It's good for people that don't want to learn how to program in Arduino. This is an awesome soundboard. So Cal did a really great job on this. This Saber will be for sale. This is a KR-V1 blade that I made. So this is like all KR Sabers except the hilt, which is vector. And then last, this is a commission that I want to show. And I'll get to your question in a second. I can't see all that stuff. So, and I think you're just asking a question about this from me just glancing at the screen there. So this was a commission that I had waiting since before I moved, since before I sold my house. And this is an OWK3 by 89 Sabers, or Corbanth. And this one's installed. Ugh. I should have shown the guts on the vectors, but I'll show the guts on the actual videos. This was installed with a Goth 3D Night chassis, Profi 2.2, recharge port, and a custom Saber Shop 15 amp Sony lithium-ion battery. Very simple Saber, no crystal chamber, no frills, no nothing. This is a commission for Chad Pulliam. I did the recessed 7/8 stock adapter in there, and then I built this blade, and you can see that the blade target is recessed into the blade, which allows the blade to go around my adapter so I get full blade depth when I seat the blade. So I'm going to go ahead and seat the blade in this hilt. And another cool thing about the adapter that I used was it has 4 LEDs on it. It's by Civilized Sabers. And so you have the stock adapter throwing light, which I didn't show you all that, but I will in a second. You have the 4 LEDs on the Civilized Sabers blade plug, but then I have that wired onto the Neopixels, and that was to make sure that we didn't have any dead space. In a lot of thin neck Sabers, you'll see a dead space, like right here in the first ½ inch or so of the blade. Not on this one. Solid, all the way to the base, all the way inside the base, you have color.
Vaders. Have you ever... Vaders. Hello there.
You've got solid color all the way to the base. So that's awesome. So this Saber is equipped with all the stuff you've seen on Profis. There's your auto lockup. Of course, it's got, melt. It does tip drag, blaster deflects, auto blaster, color changing, gesture ignitions and retractions. It does everything. So I'll show you the stock adapter in there. Does 4 sounds.
Only a fifth deals in absolutes. I will do what I must.
It also plays music. So that Saber turned out awesome. So Chad, it's almost done. I have one little tweak to do on the font, but the blade's done, the Saber's done. I'll try and work up invoice for what you owe on that. But that gets us through all that crap. I did not use any set screws in that blade, and let's get on to the video. So I wanted to show all those Sabers that we've been working on. I'm going to put this blade somewhere where it's not going to fall down, and bring you all in a little bit closer and try to read some comments. I see Mon Mothma Boba Fett is about the only one we got commenting so far, which is fine. Oh Lord, we got to drop this tripod a little bit, y'all. Bear with me. Shaky camera. Live. At least we got, oh, you're seeing the top of my head. Hello. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, let me get to your questions real quick before we switch cameras. Hey, Kyberphonic, I just covered the new Verso stuff. That thing is freaking awesome. Your fonts are incredible on there. This is kind of unexpected, but I'm trying to get off here before... That's okay, Max. This thing's going to, be saved for posterity, but I'm trying to get all this done so I can get off the air before FET263 begins his live stream. But at any rate, what do you think about producing a tapered Neo blade, original trilogy style, injection molded? I don't know. I mean, that would be cool. I guess, you know, that could be done. It's not something I'm interested in doing. I have enough work going on my own. I don't need, you know, other projects like that going on. I definitely don't have time to design a tapered Neopixel blade. Hey, Whitelaw. Yeah, I got my internet problem solved. I went from 330 kilobits per second to 3,000. So I'm in business. So next, we're going to get on to some soldering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up. I'm going to go to Windows, Share, and see what we got there. I might have to resize this a little bit and see what we're dealing with. And then let's go to this, maximize, and I don't know what y'all are seeing, but let me go try to look. So I'm going to see what we got going there. Y'all bear with me because I'm checking to see how the view looks with the scope before I move the camera over. Make sure I don't need to go back into the software and check it out. Unfortunately, there's a delay. I think that's going to work. I think that's going to work. Okay. So we're back here. Let's go to the scope and let's maximize the scope, and I think you guys should be good. I'm going to move the camera so the camera can see kind of, you know, the macro view of what's going on here. And hopefully that's working. Let me see what you guys are seeing here. And I'll try and zoom in a little bit on the subject here. You see that blue tape is where we're going to be working. I'll try and zoom in on it a little bit here. And then move that camera. Now, we're also under the scope, so you guys should see my finger under the scope here. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to break out one of these resistors. This is a 330 ohm resistor. I think one came out. That's a problem with these things. They're so dang small. Oh, yeah, it did come out. And I'm going to put it under the scope in a place you guys, I think, will be able to see it while I pretend all this stuff. Fiddle farting around with these little things. It's crazy. There. That's that little resistor we're getting ready to solder on. So it's very tiny. I'm going to bring my finger in here and you can see how tiny that little resistor is. But, you know, these things are loads of fun to work with. And tonight we'll be soldering this thing on. I've kind of got a method that I'm using now. Hopefully it all works out. Need some solder. So I'm not going to be able to read y'all's comments while I'm doing this, so y'all just hang in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of flux. I'm going to flux up our pads there. Ooh, and I wipe my resistor off. Put the resistor back down. Man, things are small. Anyway, there's that little resistor. We'll get it in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean off my soldering iron and I'm going to pretend one of these resistor pads. I want this to where you guys can see it. I'm going to pretend one of these resistor pads. So I'm coming in here with my iron and I just put a little dab of solder on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and pretend our Neopixel pads while we're in here with the iron. Now, if you'll notice that I didn't tin that one pad. We're going to come back to it. Now this sucks for me because I got to reach around. I got to reach around this camera to get to this, but I'm going to try to pick this. I'm going to try to pick up this. It disappeared on me. You gotta love these small resistors. Well, I'm not gonna sit here hunting all night for it. I don't know what happened to it. It could have flicked all over the table. These things are so small. So I'm gonna grab another one. Bam. So there's our resistor there. And I'm gonna get it where it's right side up with my tweezers. Like that. And then while it's on the flat, I'm going to grip it. I'm going to grip it with my tweezers and try to get y'all in focus here. And I'm going to grip it with my tweezers. Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to move this thing slightly out of the way and make sure you guys can see what's going on here. I haven't soldered anything yet. I'm just trying to grip it. I don't want my hand to move the camera, so I had to move the camera mount. So I'm going to grip that. And once I have the resistor in my tweezers, I'm going to heat up the pad. I'm going to slide the resistor into the pad, just like that. And then, for good measure, I'm going to use my fingernail and push down, make sure it's down, and it's down. So now one end of our resistor is soldered on there, and now that it's soldered in, I'm going to come in and solder the other side. Bada bing. Now we should be good. Now I can test this. I'm bringing the multimeter, so if y'all look in the larger camera view, you should be able to see what's getting ready to happen here on the multimeter. I'm going to ship the multimeter into ohms. And let's see if we're reading 330 here on the data pad, which we should be. Bam. 327 on that data pad. And 328 on that data pad. So we're golden. The resistor is on there. That is the blade end. So our blade target is now solid. Now the only thing that I'll do is, show you some cleanup work here. This is ready to be cleaned up. It's ready for our wires. And, I've got a couple of videos that I've done on these things, but when we clean it up, you'll see how shiny those solders are. They're nice and shiny. Oh, you can see what a difference that alcohol makes when you clean it up, but look how shiny those solders are. And probably got a little bit too much solder on this side. But it's okay, it's solid. It's in there. So that's that. Now, that sucks that you guys didn't have the macro view there because I was kind of out of focus. But what I want to do now that we've done that is I'm going to bring in some Neopixels because we're going to do something else. And I may go to the bigger camera here for this. Just bear with me because what I think I'm going to do is... Oh, I already have Neopixels out. That explains that. I'm going to need my test rig. So I'm going to set the microscope camera aside for a second. Too much crap on my workbench. Y'all bear with me. I'll be able to come read your comments here in a second too. Oh. Yeah, you can put the tape over the resistor too. But at any rate, can you have resistors on the blade and hilt side, White Law? Yes. As a matter of fact, on Profi 2.2, if you use Datapad 1, it's already resistored, but it doesn't hurt. I think Frederick tested up to 1500 ohms of resistance on the data line, and he was still getting the signal through. So yeah, you can have dual resistors. It's not going to hurt anything. But at any rate, I want to go back to the camera view here because we're going to show you these pixels. Now I'm going to go back under the microscope here and do at least one of these because I've been having some pretty decent success. But I want to show you guys on the camera here, so I'm going to go back to the scene. Blam! Alright, so This is a Neopixel strip, and these are 3535s, what I typically use in my blades. You can see the arrows there, they're pointing that way. So let me get the end here. So the end usually has this male connector on it, and these wires are just spare, so you can continue your power onto another strip. But in Saber building, we don't do that. But there is the male end that's on these things. And so basically on my test rig, which I'll show my test rig here real quick. This is my test rig, and it's just a prism, and it's basically, never mind all the goo. You guys got to realize I throw this thing around, so I've kind of tried to protect it as much as I can. But I've got a data resistor going to my green data line. White here is hooked onto 2 FETs. There's actually 2 wires there. I don't know if you can see it. One goes to one FET, the other goes to the other. These are my 2 switches that I have going to, you know, the power and auxiliary. I have 2 speaker wires hooked up here. There's my positive connection and my negative connection. And then on my Neopixel end, I have one of these female connectors that connects into the strip. So one of the first things I do when I get strips in, and I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. I want to zoom out so you guys can see the totality of the picture here. But I'm going to plug in my test board into these new strips. And then once I do that, I'm going to bring in a battery and power up my test board. So I'm going to hook the positive on a positive, negative on a negative. And usually we hear a boot, but we didn't. Oh, because the battery fell out of the holder. So there we got a boot. So now we got my Neopixel strip over here, and I'm going to test it. And I'll bring in the other end so you guys can see the other. It's lit all the way to the end. The camera's not big enough to capture all this. And then I'll normally put it in lockup and shift it through some color changes. It's a prism. Oh, thanks, Mountain Sabers. Soldering live always sucks because, you know, I'd mess up and y'all see my shaky hands. The funny thing is, you know, a lot of people are like, man, my hands are shaky. And I'm like, yeah, well, welcome to the crowd. My hands are shaky too. Oh, no, these are 3535s. These are the strips that I use in my Neopixel blades. I hate prism. Trying to get color change on prism is tough. All right, so there's the blue we want. We're back to the blue. There's our lockup, and now I'm going to retract that blade. So I know this Neopixel strip is good. Now, for those of y'all that are ordering these Neopixel strips, when they come in, there's always a joint on these things. And on this one, you can see this joint is right here, and it's not that bad. It's not too bad. But usually where you have these joints, and it's right here. Hopefully y'all can see that joint and try to get it in the light here. But that joint is a little bit separated. So the pixels are a little bit further apart on this joint, and sometimes that's noticeable on a blade. So usually what I'll do is I'll cut these apart. So that's what we're fixing to do. We're going to go back under scope, and I'm going to cut these pixel strips apart. I'm going to separate them and rejoin them, and I want you guys to be able to see how I do all that. Somebody requested this a while ago, and I'm just trying to make it happen. So I'm going to bring in our camera again, our scope, and I'm going to go back to the scope here, and I'm going to bring our strip in. I'm going to need some more tape here in a second. And I'm going to bring our strip in and try to get it on the joint. Bam. So, God, gotta love working with these cameras. Y'all bear with me. I'll get this. I gotta get this done before Fernando's live video, so I'm under time pressure. So, I had all this set up last night. This is the doing this pixel repair on these 3535s, I'm actually going to use these 3535s for the Neopixel blade for the Star Killer. So if somebody buys that Star Killer and they need a blade, I got a blade for it. And usually when I sell a Saber, I would rather the purchaser buy a blade from me, because otherwise they're going to end up sitting it back, the Saber, so I can reprogram it to match their blade. So it just saves a lot of time, money, and effort and heartache for people to just buy one of the blades that I build for the Saber. But you know, if people want to buy their own, and they can pay for shipping back and forth when I have to reprogram their Saber because, you know, their blade has more or less pixels than the blades that I build or how I program their Profi. So the first thing I do is take off this adhesive backing here. Now, on the backing, you've also got this sticky tape. I'm going to try to show you guys what I'm talking about. In addition to the backing, and hopefully you guys can see it on this camera, because I know I'm not totally under the scope right now, but I'm going to, you know what? Stand by. I got it on the scene. So I need Windows share. You guys weren't seeing anything on the scope. So now you should be seeing the scope and this camera. But this joint here is what I'm working with. So now what I want to do is, you know, making a minor cut to that adhesive tape there. And I'm going to cut the adhesive tape here on either side of that joint. And then I'm going to get rid of that adhesive tape. And I usually use a knife to get it started. I'm just trying to get the adhesive off of there so I can separate this joint. This adhesive does provide insulation for the joint as well, but it's a pain in the butt getting this stuff off, man. It likes to stick. When you're trying to do it around a camera, it's even worse. But at any rate, I'll bring in. So there's our joint with the adhesive off on the scope. So hopefully you guys can see that. Now, what I'm going to do now, and I may try to move the scope over a little bit, and I'll try to get it on the subject. There is our joint. And I'm going to try and focus in for you guys here. There is our joint. And let me get some focus going on here. So we've got our joint. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to apply some pressure, pulling that joint apart. And I'm going to apply some heat on all three pads. And bam! Now we've separated our strip. So now we've got our strip separated. So I'm going to put you guys back on this camera, on the big camera here. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing now. If you guys can see, they left a lot of the pixel strip there. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it pretty much back to the line on these strips. And just leave enough of the pad to solder to there. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And bring that in so hopefully you guys can see that on the camera. And I'm going to trim that side. Now once that's done, I want to make sure our arrows are going in the right direction, and I'm going to try and make sure that we get this in a position here where y'all can see what's going on. I'm going to tape the strip down and try to make sure I've got the joint where you guys can see it. Bear with me, I'll get it. Stupid camera. Alright, so it looks like you guys can see that. Looks like it needs to come toward me a little bit more before I tape it down. Sucks working under the scope because I'm, you know, normally I just do this with the naked eye, but I want you guys to be able to see it. And if I did this on a video, get some focus on the subject there. If I just did this on a video, you guys wouldn't really be able to see what I was doing. So now I'm going to bring the other end in that we cut and trim back, and I'm making sure my arrows are going in the right direction, and they are. And I'm going to get this one taped down, lined up with the other one. wonder if I should trim that back a little bit more. I didn't trim that one back to the line, so I'm going to trim this side a little bit more and get them a little bit closer together. You know, millimeters count in this. Okay, let's try to bring this in here. And I know the tape's in y'all's way on the camera here. Just give me a second. Let's get this sucker down. There. Alright. So now there is our two strips that we've got taped down on this board, bringing them back together. Now I'm going to clean my soldering tip with some water and some copper, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to heat up each of these three joints to try and bring them back together. And I'm going to bring some solder into the picture here too. I know I can't see you guys' comments. You guys are asking questions or whatever right now. I'm not going to be able to see it because my hands are full at the moment. But you see my shaky hands on that video for sure. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so now that that's done, I can undo this tape temporarily. And I'm going to go to the back side. Some people are going to disagree with this, but I go again on the back side. I just want to make sure you guys can see this. Some guys don't like doing this on the back side because then you could have a little hump in the Neopixels right there. But when you're using 3535s, I think it all works out pretty good. So there, now we're on the back side of these strips, and I'm going to heat up that pad there, heat up that one there, and heat up that one there. And bada bing. So that should be it for the scope. So standby one. I'm going to go back to, there's always a joint in these strips. I'm going to go back to, just the scene, so y'all get me on the big camera, and I'm gonna get this scope out of the way of y'all's view and out of my way, period. So I'm gonna take my scope camera off of there and set it aside, so hopefully you guys can see what's going on here. So let me try to get some light on the subject here and bring y'all on over, and then I'm going to kind of bring y'all in to where I'm working here. So now the issue is we have this strip, and we have a little bit of exposed the Neopixel contacts on the back of the strip. So what I do here is I take a little bit of electrical tape, and I don't know where my normal good scissors are, but I take some electrical tape and I'll put it right over that joint. It looks like I need to cut that a little bit shorter, so let's cut that a little bit shorter. I'm going to get to some questions here because it looks like we're going to be done before Fernando goes live, so I'll try and get back to the chat here in just a minute. But I'm going to put that tape over the back of our joint, and that provides insulation on those contacts. That way, when you have the pixels back to back, you don't have any issues with shorting. And then I'm going to take my knife. Hopefully you guys can see this, and I'm going to cut that tape back. Yeah, most of these strips have joints in them, Mountain Sabers. The joints really don't affect the Neopixel signal. And now we're going to plug this thing back into our test board. And we're going to fire it up and see if our joint worked. Oh! Hopefully our joint worked. To wake the board up out of deep sleep. Oh yeah! So we've got joy all the way down the strip. So there's the forward end of the strip that's not plugged in. And when I get to our joint, I will let you know. Here's our joint right here. between these two pixels. That's our joint, and it looks much better now. But she's lit end to end. So now I know this strip is good, and it's ready to be installed in the blade. So that is that for tonight. Now I'm going to be able to get to chat. We successfully patched a pixel strip, added an 0603 resistor, and I'm going to go back to screen share here. Stand by. Go back to window share. You guys are going to see the camera shaking around here. Just bear with me. We'll be solid here in a second. Oh, Lord have mercy. No, we don't want to zoom in on my fat, ugly, bald head. We want to zoom out. And there we're back. So that was it. That was kind of what I wanted to show you guys tonight. And, you know, we respliced this Neopixel strip right there. Right there is our splice. There's my tape on the back. We know that this whole strip lit up, and it's awesome. If you guys don't believe me that the whole thing lit up, then I'll show you again here. Oop, got the wrong end plugged in there. Because I know you can't see the whole thing when we were on camera there, because we were zoomed in, but there you go. She's lit up end to end. We're good to go. That's the advantage of making a test board like this. I know a lot of guys got a lot of these older boards laying around. Hey, Jared, a lot of these guys have a lot of boards laying around, like old Nano Biscottis and old Prisms. And, you know, you can take an old soundboard that's kind of, you know, you're not really going to use anymore, but it still works to light up Neopixels and kind of let you know where your Neopixel problems are at before you build these blades. So in my blade building video, I talked about my test board. There it is. It doesn't look pretty. You know, it's not a thing of art. It's got hot glue on it. But I put the hot glue on there so it holds up, you know, because I throw this thing all around my workshop. But that's my test board, and I put the female plug on the test board so that I can connect it into the Neopixels. And to me, not motors yet, Jared. I'm supposed to get them in this Saturday. So what I'm hoping is next Monday, you know, we'll have a video about motors. It depends on when I get them in and if I get a chance to work on the configs and all. But I do have to build a Neopixel blade here first, so we'll see about that. Shut all those lights down. And let me see what we can do here about this camera. Y'all hang in there. See if the exposure is any better on that now. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Sorry, under the bright lights, the exposure was kind of crazy. Yeah, you can put the tester on a chassis. That's something I didn't even think about mounting Sabers. See, guys like you have ideas like that. I think the important part is just to have a test board you can plug into your Neopixel strips. You know, I don't know how much of this is passe, because with Cal's V2 pixel blades, you know, it's so much easier building a Neopixel blades with Cal's strips than it is with these, you know, loose strips like we're building blades out of now. These are the 3535s that I build Neopixel blades out of. I like them. They're awesome. They're bright. But they are a pain in the butt because you have all this Neopixel splicing. You have to tape the strips back to back, make sure all the pads are insulated, make sure there's no bends or, you know, whoop-de-woos in the strips. And then you have to do all this diffusion on the strips, and it's a lot of work. You know, for me to build a Neopixel blade probably takes about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. But if I build a KR pixel blade, I can do it in an hour. So the KR is more expensive, but less labor intensive. And the pixels look really, really good on those KR strips. So earlier tonight's video, when I demonstrated the Verso Saber, which is the Fin Jedi, which is the polished aluminum hilt, the vector hilt that I showed, that blade in that saber was a KR pixel stick, V1. And, you know, that thing's pretty awesome. But the bottom line is tonight's live video is what I was supposed to do last night, and it was important that I got this video done. I had made a promise to y'all before that I would show pixel splicing. So I did. Taking this extra space out mount Sabers is exactly right, because if you don't take that space out of those pixels, it really shows up as a dark spot on the blade. And the reason that I use these 35-35 strips is not only do you reduce the dark side because the pixels are actually closer together on these 35-35 strips than they are in 50-50s, but the strips are also narrower, so more of the light makes it around the blade, so you get less of that edge shadowing you get. The vertical shadowing up the blade. Yeah, Jared, if you don't use something, the KR strips are so heavy because it's a solid, hard PCB. What I found is if you don't use more insulation around the foam and the strips and everything, that it rattles around inside the blade. So typically what I do is I'll use heat shrink around the KR strip, put it in the foam, and then I do a bunch of layers of cellophane until the foam is tight against the edge of the blade. That way it can't rattle around in there. And it also protects the blade and helps diffuse and send more light far and wide. So I do still use film on the KR strip blades. I think that definitely makes it work out better. I need a glass of tea, I've been yakking. But I just wanted to get this in tonight so I can finish building this Neopixel blade for the Star Killer. That's where these strips are going, and I got another set of strips over here that I'll have to do the same thing to when I say goodbye to y'all. And we also did the 0603 resistor solder on the blade target that's going in that blade. There's the 0603 resistor in the blade PCB that we did tonight, and you know, it came out really good. Hopefully that video came out good. But you know, shown the all four of the lightsabers that I have built and are getting ready to, you know, go for sale. The two vector hilts and the Star Killer are going to be going on the market here shortly. I got to shoot the video for them probably this weekend. I got to add the leather wrap to the Jedi Vector, and then off to the Smooth Jazz family has dibs on that Star Killer. So we'll see once I get them all priced up if he's still interested. But the bottom line is that, you know, I'm back in business. I'm building a lot of lightsabers, and, you know, between the Graflex and those 4 sabers and other projects that I've been working on, and I got a lot more sabers in the build queue up there. I'm ready to rock and roll. So I'm pretty excited about everything that's going on with the sabers. But do I like doing the resistors versus pre-soldered? Well, to me, you know, Mountain Sabers, I buy these SMD resistors in packs like this, and I can get them for cents. And, you know, the TCSS charges quite a bit more for those. So to me, just soldering the resistor onto the PCB is easy. And I kind of enjoy it because one of the reasons I got into this hobby is when you're working on those tiny, tiny little resistors, you're so focused in that moment, which is why it's so hard for me to do on video. But you're so focused in that moment that whatever bad went on in your day kind of washes away because you don't have to think about it, because you've got to be focused in the moment when you're working on those small, you know, 0603 resistors. And I know there's smaller stuff than that, but, you know, an 0603 is about as small as I like to go. And I've done SMD LEDs on CFX, and I've got videos on that were, you know, that thing came out pretty cool too. But yeah, to me, it's just easier to do that stuff in bulk. And my warning light came on that Fett's getting ready to go live, and I don't want to take away from his video tonight. That wasn't my intention. So I want to get off the air quickly so that, you know, those of you that are going to watch Fett 263 can watch Fett 263. And I'm glad I got this up there, so now I can finish building this blade. And that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish building this blade. I'm going to watch Fernando's live video, and may the force be with you all, or the dark side as it were. We'll see y'all hopefully next Monday, now that my internet issues are fixed. Thank you all for joining in, and if I missed any questions, bring them to me next week, and I'll get to them. Yep, gotta roll, Max. We'll see you guys on there.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, as usual. I really appreciate y'all tuning in on my channel. And as always,